Hi. Okay. Well, I think we're live now. So let's just kick it off. Sharran, if you don't mind. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you joining us from across the world today. Welcome to another edition of Pandemic Punditry's Marketing in a Pandemic. We are delighted to have with us Sharran Srivatsaa, partner, Srilo Ventures, a four-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur with 6 exits in the last 19 years. And most recently, he grew Teles Properties from $300 million to $3.4 billion in 5 years. Welcome to Pandemic Punditry, Sharran.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. And I know people are here all around the world. So
Right.
I don't know which time zone everyone's catching us in, but this is exciting.
Yes, so I'm coming into you from New Delhi, India, and Karthika is joining us from Colombo, Sri Lanka, actually.
Awesome, fantastic. I've actually been. I was born in Delhi.
Oh, really? Delhi? Oh, wow. Okay. I was wondering. I know you were from India originally, but I didn't know you were born in Delhi. Oh, great. What a small world sometimes. I see you don't have your artifact of strength with you today.
I had to step up and get like legitimate microphone audio for you guys, right? But the artifact of strength is not on for the calls yet, so okay. I'm sure it'll get on later today.
Yeah, great, and I'm sure we can talk about share that story a little bit downstream here. So jumping straight in here. So in the middle of this pandemic, right, we're having sort of historic levels of anxiety and social displacement and despair. What inspiration can others draw from, what is an amazing and awe-inspiring story of you? I mean, I think, that may be a really helpful place to start, because you just mentioned that you were originally from New Delhi, and your story is just amazing. I mean, I've heard it, repeated several times in several different podcasts, but maybe an abbreviated version for our viewers as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, right? I think here's the interesting part. A lot of people don't realize that we are all normal people, right? None of us, we're all pretty normal. We were all given the gifts of wherever we were born and the things that we have. And I'm a big, a proponent of the fact that it is amazing where life takes you where life takes you. And people will say things like this. And here's the first thing I want to share. People will say like, oh, if Elon can do it, you can do it. If Jimmy can do it, you can do it. If Modi can do it, you can do it. Like, it's not the truth, though. I'll tell you that it's not the truth. And there's a reason for that. The reason is each of our backgrounds are completely different. And I don't want to be in a place where I want to model somebody specifically, because that's what the modern world has taught us. They're like, hey, here, go read about this person and let's model their life. Let's take Steve Jobs' morning routine. Let's take the 3-week sabbatical that Bill Gates takes to read books. You and I can't take 3 weeks off to go read like 97 books. Are you kidding me? Like, that doesn't work. And the practicality of this stuff is completely broken. So what I realized is that it's a little different. And so I said, I can't model the person. If I can't model the person, there's got to be some clues for success. I shouldn't have to build it all on my own. So what is the clue? And I'll tell you what the clue is. Again, this is a working theory, right? Okay, so right. I don't have all the answers. I just have a working theory. So my working theory is this: instead of modeling the person, I want to model their support system. Think about it a little differently, right? Instead of modeling the person, I want to model their support system. So when I was in India, and you know this really well, like there's a set of rules and norms that we live by in India, right? Like, it's like, hey, if you can't read and if you can't do math, you are dumb. Like, straight up. It doesn't matter, right? Like, so I'm dyslexic. I have ADD, ADHD. I couldn't do math in India. I just couldn't do it. So everyone was like, you are dumb. And well, what do my parents say? I was the only kid. My parents were like, well, this is really sad. I don't think my son's dumb. But now I'm colorblind. I am tone deaf. So I can't do music. I can't do art. I can't do math. I can't read. And I'm one of the smallest kids in class. So what happens when you think about that, right? So in isolation, none of those are a problem. Right. But when you put them all together and you're 11 years old, you are literally, you're perfect for the person to get picked on, right? Perfect for the person to get picked on. So it's actually not very common, as you know, in India, Sri Lanka, and the South Asian continents to be bullied. But I was bullied because I was the perfect candidate for it, right? Like the absolute perfect candidate. Like, I'm not joking. I was like beaten and bullied in school, right? And what do? Tell your parents that you were beaten and bullied? No, you don't. Like,
No.
can you imagine telling your parents that you were beaten and bullied? There's no way. You don't have courage to do that.
Yeah.
But my parents realized that early on, right? And so they said to me, so my dad early on, he realized that, and he's like, hey, I don't think that this infrastructure, this system is maybe the right fit for you. I will do what it takes to get you out of this. And so we focused on one thing that I could do. So we literally put academics aside, focused on tennis as my kind of passport to leave the country. Not for any other reason that I didn't like India or anything, but my parents just believed that I would do better elsewhere. That's all. And kudos to them for that, right?
Yeah, totally.
So my parents, like all I did was put tennis first, and we worked on that. And my parents sold everything that they had, as you know, amazing sacrifice. And they sent me to the US. They gave me 1 year's worth of expenses. And they said, hey, if you can make this for a year and you can stay, great. If you can't make it, come back. So they gave me a 1 year head start, and that's what kicked into everything that I got to do. So, but the goal here, what I wanted to share is that instead of modeling people, let's model their support systems. Let's, do they have the right coaches? Do they have the right friends? Do they have the right mastermind groups? Do they have the right, community like you guys to support them? Because if you can model the support system, if I can say, hey, this is what Steve Jobs had. Yes, he had some talent, but that I may or may not have, but what else did he have around him? Can I model that? And that will help me get to something much faster.
Oh, it's a really good point. Does it also extend to things like behaviors as well? That you model people's behaviors, not them, obviously, but things like routines and things. Not to the not to the extent of, okay, he wears black t-shirts, so I'm going to wear a black t-shirt, and that's going to solve my life problems. Yeah. But the thought process behind that is to make things simple. So exactly. He doesn't have to spend 15 minutes figuring out what he's going to wear, right? So he just picks up his uniform and he's out. And so maybe the learning is in that, not the fact that it's a black t-shirt that's going to.
You're 100% right. That is exactly the point, right? The point is asking. I always say this. Good entrepreneurs make good decisions, and great entrepreneurs tell you why they made those decisions. There's a big difference, right? And especially in today's social media world, you have a lot of people that are these self-proclaimed gurus. And I actually don't have a problem with that at all, because if you have somebody that is stepping on a stage, using their platform to generate more inspiration, to give more value, to help other people, I am totally okay with that. I think that's a very healthy thing. That's positive. Whether or not they're trying to make money or build their brand or get famous, I have zero problem with it as long as they're showing up to serve the world in some way, right? So I'm okay with it. But the issue that I have is when all they talk about is the surface level of hey, the black t-shirt, but you don't exactly know the why, right? What is the why behind it? And I think you nailed it. The why behind it is to not to have decision drag. Decision drag is the reason, right? So if I have the same things, like I call it, my wife always makes fun of me. She's like, since I'm colorblind, right? Like I'll wear blue and red. Like I have no idea. So we have very simple things. I have a blue wardrobe and I have blues and blacks, and it's super easy for me. And I almost wear the same thing every day. And the reason is that I wear whatever's in rotation, and that is to eliminate, kind of decision drag. And eliminating decision drag, or what we call decision fatigue, is the reason for that. So if I can only make 3 to 5 big important decisions in a given day, then I should reserve that decision-making capability, that energy to be able to do that. And so otherwise I'm just like, well, should I put my headphones on today? Should I do this today? Should I make my hair today? Like everything there's too much decision drag, right? The interesting part though is there's a way to combat that. So for someone that says, well, so I'll give you an example. I always like going back to my family because it's real, right? It's like, right. It's what my kids do, what my wife does is totally real, right? So my wife is not the kind of person who will wear the same t-shirt every day or the same dress every day. That's weird. Like, Karthika, you probably understand that. Like, why would you wear this? It's not the jam, right? Right, exactly, right? So, but for her, there's a way to fix that. The idea is not to wear the same t-shirt. The idea is to eliminate decision fatigue. So the easiest way to do that is to just lay it all out the night before so that you don't have to make that the next morning. So simple things like that, when we install simple best practices in our lives to eliminate the decision fatigue or things like that, it allows us to show up and be better, whoever, entrepreneurs, parents, wives, husbands, whatever. And I think those are the lessons that are hard to read. And the tough part is that's not apparent, right? And like you say, well, Steve Jobs wears the same t-shirt every day. Well, yeah, that's interesting. But like you have to have a dialogue about that with someone that is thinking about it to actually get the essence from it. So I think that's why a good mastermind group or a good support system is important, because you can ask the question, well, how can I install this in my life without just ripping this off?
And I think your father's advice of paying for convenience makes sense as well, right? In that same thing. It's like, look, if you pay for the convenience of having somebody, make you breakfast or cook your lunch or whatever, because that's something you don't have to spend time doing. You can productively apply that somewhere else. I assume that's what he meant by that piece of advice.
Oh, I think so too. But my dad is he's such a cool guy. Like, he's a big fan of, I always wonder how, one of the things, my dad always used to say this, he said to me, he goes, you always want to be consistently consistent. And that's a cool thing, right? And meaning, hey, when I show up and you are with me, you always feel the same way. You always know what to expect. You know that I always show up. You know that I always bring the energy. You know that there's always positivity. You're always consistent. You know that when you email me, I'll email you back. You know that when you talk to my assistant, she gets back to you. You know, there's a consistency there, right? The people that cause pain in our lives are people that are consistently inconsistent, right? And so, and it's not that, like, I actually have people, and this is fascinating to me, right? So one of the creative directors of one of my businesses, probably one of the most creative people that I've known in my life. I literally will go to him for everything because I know that I'll always get a great product. But I may present an idea to him and I may get a great product in 12 hours and I might get a great product in 12 months. I have no idea. Whenever inspiration strikes for him is when I'll get. And in fact, I'll email him. I'll be like, bro, I need this tomorrow. No response, right? And the interesting thing, and I'm like, I pay him a lot of money. And the point is, he's really good, but he's consistently inconsistent. And when you're consistently inconsistent, there's a level of trust that starts to erode over time. And I don't think that's healthy for a lot of people. And that's why when you can outsource something and you know that every morning someone's going to have breakfast ready for you, or every morning, your car is going to be ready, or hey, I press a button in an automation and like 14 things get done because I paid someone to build it. Or, when after you guys are done with the podcast, it's an easy process where, a couple of people download the link, a couple of people post this, there's a workflow, because consistently that's going to happen. And that creates what? Safety, stability, right? And that reduces the anxiety, which comes back to our anxiety question during this time, so that you can be who you are. And I think that this is really unfair to say, but your life, our lives, all of our lives will be better if we can eliminate people in our lives that are consistently inconsistent. Like, it's and if it's family, I'm sorry. Like, I would kind of put them, don't have the active, the quarantine this is the best time. Right? This is the best time where, like, it's the greatest excuse to stay away from the people that are consistently inconsistent. Like, I know I have family members. We all have large, like, Indian family. We have a large family. I have family members. I'd say 85% of my family I love and I adore. There's like 3 people that are super weird, right? Like, they're just super weird, right? And I don't want to hang out with them because I just don't get along, because you don't get along with everybody.
Correct.
And it's a great excuse to, like, not call them back. Like, I just don't want a part of it because I'm forcefully eliminating the consistently inconsistent people from my life. So my lesson number 1, kind of to reduce anxiety during this time, would be create more consistent stability in your life by doing simple things, by just, number 1, eliminating the consistently inconsistent people, because you just don't know what's coming at you from them.
Okay, sure.
So I might as well just, I don't want I don't want something that I don't know how to handle, because now that causes pain, that causes anxiety. Now, in addition to the general anxiety in the world, now I have to handle the ridiculous anxiety of somebody in my family that like is consistently inconsistent. I don't want that, right? And so my first lesson would be, let's just, I know it's a hard thing to do, but just eliminate people that are consistently inconsistent from your life.
Great. Karthika?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
by the way, we can all relate to that. And my wife who's listening to this podcast probably laughing right now, saying, I told you, that's what I do.
Yeah, we all sort of practice it subconsciously. It's interesting you said that, because we often hear this phrase, which was inspired by Dr. Robert Schull's book of the same name, Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do. So if you were given like a choice of picking just one candidate, one who's, highly competent with less than, a less than ideal mindset, and another with a very positive mindset, but not very competent, which one would you choose and why?
So it's a good question. I think that's hard. So, it's very difficult. The one thing that I've learned over the years is that I'm human and I make a lot of mistakes, but the absolutes are very difficult. And here's what I mean. My coach will always tell me, he says, be very careful when you use the words never and always. Never and always are very scary words. And let me tell you why. They install a belief system into someone else when they shouldn't believe something that way. So, for example, if I said to you, Karthika, never hire somebody that is blank, right? If I said that, well, now I'm taking my belief system of something that happened in my past, about something that happened that should not affect you probably, and now I'm taking that belief system and installing it, which is actually it's not healthy, right? So whenever I find myself using the words never and always, my suggestion to everybody would be, if you hear the words never and always, just take it with a grain of salt, because even though you don't understand that what it's doing, it's starting to install a piece of a belief system into you, right? So people will say, well, always wake up at 4:59. No, you don't. No, that's not it, because I'm installing this new belief system that may not serve you, right? So let's talk about hiring this person or bringing on a partner or someone like that. It's very hard for us, like the modern world of recruiting people, human capital, making sure you're hiring the right person, etc., is all based around this. Let me figure out if they have the right skill or capability to add value. So it's like, show me your resume, right? Like that's what this is all about. And I'll tell you how we in all our businesses, we've gone away from the resume-based hiring. And so I'll answer that in a practical way, and then I'll give you my philosophical thought on it. So I'll tell you how we hire. Maybe it'll help other people as well. Yes. And it's not complex, right? Here's what we do. We actually do a form. We literally do a form. And so the form is, hey, name, a couple of contact information, et cetera. And then then it's all multiple choice. Hey, what do you like? Do you like coding, marketing, blah, blah, blah? Awesome. What don't you like? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is one thing that really bothers you? Blank question mark, right? Like, and then have people type, hey, if you got this job, what is the first thing that you would do? And I just want to see a open response, because I'll know pretty quickly whether they have the skill set or not. Because if it's a marketing position and they don't love marketing, like that's weird, right? And so that's number one. And the second thing that we do is we generally do something. We do some kind of personality type indicator. So we use like a DISC test, which is free. One of the tests that I really like is called the Kolbe, Kolbe, and it's like $20 or something. But it gives you a good sense of, if you're hiring for a certain role, if they are naturally not predisposed to that, that's weird. Like, if you're hiring somebody to do an accounting role, and they naturally don't have a detail orientedness in their personality, that's weird. Like you're gonna cause errors when it comes to that. So that's the second pass. But my third pass is, this is what we do every single time. We pay for this person to come and spend one day with our team. We say, bring your laptop, we'll plug you into our systems, and whatever we're working on that day, we pay you for the day. Take your day off, we'll pay you. Come work with our team. Whatever we're working on, you work on with us. I don't care if you know how to make a YouTube video about something. Google it. I like at the end, why do I care if you know how to answer a maths problem or know like the 7 dwarf planets? I don't care. I don't need to ask you any questions, right? I just want to know that when you are stuck with something, you need to be able to solve it and work collaboratively with my team. And in today's world, literally, we all know this, almost everything is available online. If you can either for free, I'd say 90% is available for free, and like 10% if you want to organize and want to pay for it. Like it's there, right? So when people work with our team for a day, you realize pretty quickly whether that person can tap their resources, solve a problem, how they think, how they communicate, how they write an email, how they write Slack, how they deliver a question, how you know it very quickly. And that has been the most significant thing of allowing us to figure out how to hire somebody. So to kind of summarize that, I'd say we hire the attitude, and we train the skill, right? We just hire the attitude and we train the skill. And I'll give you a very simple example. I have a copywriter on my team. My copywriter takes like a podcast like we do like this, and he'll listen to it. He'll take what you said, the question asked, and he'll make some content out of it, which is good. Like otherwise, I don't know how we create stuff.
Right.
And he does a good job with it. He's not amazing, but he does a pretty good job with it, right? He takes my words and he creates stuff. So I had an idea, and I'm like, well, how do I train him better? And so my team was like, well, Sharran, you should spend time with him to train him. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? So here's what I did. He's a really great guy. He does good work. I just bought him a copywriting course. I bought him, one of my friends did a copywriting course for $2,000. I bought the course for $2,000 and I handed it to this guy. I'm like, dude, here, I bought you a $2,000 course. Now, all I want you to do is to do this over the next 30 days and then tell me the 1 to 3 to 5 things that you're going to do differently. Now, that goes to answering your question where I hired the attitude and then I can just train the capability. Now, if they can't keep up with the training of the capability, whatever, then they're not the right fit. But
Right.
I would much rather buy a $2,000 course for a $100,000 a year employee. Again, I'm making up numbers, right? But as opposed to hire them because they have a skill. And because the cool part today is that also people forget this. If we just want a short-term skill, if we just want somebody to like edit 20 videos, like you can go hire one person to go do that job and then be done with it, right?
Yeah, Upwork or something. Yeah, you can even do it.
Right. Yeah, you can. I'm a big fan of hiring consultants to do like I call them, hey, I'm going to hire you for a result. Hey, go optimize my database. Go clean up my network. Go clean up my I'm going to hire you for 90 days. I'm going to pay you X amount. Go do that. We don't need to bring on people into our core teams anymore that need to be along for the ride. I think we can go hire specialists from time to time to do a specific job. But the only way we can do that is if you have your core team completely aligned attitudinally, right? So my core team is, they have full carte blanche to go hire, fire, whatever, because from like you said, from an attitude, they're tough people. They get what it needs to get done, and they may not know how to do something, but I'm like, hey, go buy the $2,000 course to learn a skill, but let's not do it in reverse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfectly. Actually, it's a great answer to that question, right, Karthika?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So in one of your previous podcasts with, I think, Jason, you were talking about in Silicon Valley, how people say when you ask for money, you get advice, but when you ask for advice, you get money. So what advice would you give entrepreneurs looking to raise funds during the pandemic?
Yeah, so I look at probably, so in our fund, I look at probably 3 pitch decks a week, and that's not a lot, but we're a smaller fund, so I see a lot of pitch decks, and what I've noticed is that the end result, it's easy to raise money when you are talking to the right person, and what I mean by that is there's very few things that I know, and I only invest in what I know. And the things that I know well, and it's probably like 2 things. And in those 2 little niches, I know everything, I know everybody, I know every product, I know everything. Outside of those, my knowledge is not that that deep. It's broad enough, but it's not that deep. So when I get somebody in that space, I can do one of two things very quickly. I can very quickly know whether I can write the check that can become very good, or I also know I can help them very quickly and bolt them onto something that I have. The hard part for me is the reason I talk about asking for advice is my goal is not to ask for cash or ask for an investment. My goal is to figure out who is that person that I can get into that niche with that is exactly dialed into who I am and what I'm trying to do. Because the hard part is, if raising, you can raise general monies, right, which is friends and family, that they would do it because they love you, and they would, whether you bought 4 cows to milk them, or whether you built a software company, they're gonna write you the same check anyway.
Right.
But for us, it's more I want to ask for advice so that I can smoke out whether they're the right person for me. Because if they're the right person for me, they will write the check. You don't want a check from someone, especially the person that you don't know, who doesn't understand exactly what you do, because that is the worst possible investor. And not from the perspective of whether they can help or they can't help. They're going to be a pain to keep around. And like I've raised money, and I've had investors who I took money from that I really wish I hadn't, multiple times, right? And because they're the people, like, every 15 days they're like, hey, where's my ROI? And I'm like, dude, this is a 7-year deal, right? And this is not the, and so when someone doesn't understand the asset class, or doesn't understand the problem, or doesn't understand the solution you're building, the advice is just a roundabout way of me saying, how can I get to the person that knows my niche so well that they can either help me with their expertise, or they know it so well that they're happy to write the check because they're along for the ride, and their ecosystem will help me some more. So I'm less on the fundraising side per se, and more on the, I want to have as many conversations as possible, because if I talk to 18 people, and out of the 18 people, 7 told me to go to this one person, I know that they are a niche expert, and I need to talk to them. So my job is to get to, like, and generally I call it the Dream 100. The Dream 100. So let's talk about how you raise money. The Dream 100 is what every entrepreneur should build. It's a concept that was made popularized by this guy named Chet Holmes. Chet Holmes wrote this book called The Ultimate Sales Machine. I generally don't recommend books, but if you're an entrepreneur, salesperson, you should read this book called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. Really great book. And he talks about this idea called the Dream 100. The Dream 100 basically is, who are 100 people, you can call it the Dream 10, but who are the 100 people, or the group of people that you know for sure either understand your, like, that if they endorsed you in some way, either through introductions, either through advice, either through money, if those 100 people endorsed you in some way, you will be able to accomplish anything you want in your business. Anything you want. Now, for example, Warren Buffett is not in my Dream 100. Like, if I had coffee with him, I would not know what to ask. I'd be like, "Can I take a selfie?" Like, I don't know what to ask him. Like, he's not in my. But there are 10 or 15 people that I know that are so deep in my world that if I could have their vote for whatever I'm doing, that will change my life. And that's the hardest part to do. So as soon as you have your Dream 100, spend all your time trying to get network into those people, and then keep asking those people for advice only, because once you have them, they will naturally give you the money, because that's the easiest way it happens. So my first thing to do would be, if you're an entrepreneur, write up your Dream 100 list, which is, who are the 100 people that I can have vote for me, or support, or endorse my product or my service or my mission. And then a lot of cool things happen from that.
Oh, that's great advice. It's great advice. It's good exercise. I don't know how many entrepreneurs actually engage in that, but that's brilliant. I haven't heard that one before, but that's a very good piece of advice. So these sort of the three things that you went through, which was, make sure the person that you're pitching to, and you are sort of mission aligned in terms of, will they actually buy my product or service, right? That's the key thing there, right? Because if they can't relate to it, then they're not going to invest. You're not going to invest in something that you personally don't know much about. Yeah. And I think the second part that you said is, does that person trust me, right? I mean, can we build, rapport, trust, and genuine sort of mentorship capability there? And then the third one is, can that can you as an investor actually help that person, right? So if you can't help them, then you can't really do anything, and you highly unlikely would put any money in it. So this is great points for, and then this Dream 100. I think that's a brilliant piece of advice there. So who are some of the young entrepreneurs that you that inspire you, and why?
There's
And the answer can be none, but that's
no. Yeah, and not at all the case at all. There's there's a lot of awesome entrepreneurs out there. So I'll give you an example of one person, but they're all in a very niche field, right? So for example, take a Jason Capital, right? Very, very powerful entrepreneur. I'll give you the one thing that I love about Jason. So Jason's still in his 20s, and it's pretty amazing when you can say, I'm 20 years old. I didn't graduate from college. I literally am using the various new things that are happening in the world and creating a platform for other people to succeed based on the business that I'm building. Like he's got the one thing that I love about someone like a Jason Capital is he's not selling a product or a service. He's selling a capability. Think about that for a second, right? He's not selling a product or a service. He's selling a capability. He's saying, hey, when you invest in my course, my training, my product, my coaching program, etc., I'm going to teach you something that you can take and go multiply. Like you can learn a skill that you can go build a business around. That's super powerful, right? That's like us. That's why I like trainings like a Darren Hardy's does a good job of saying, I'll teach you to become more productive. That's cool because when you become more productive, now you can take the 1 hour free time that you have and you multiply it to 10. Now you can do more with it. I love anybody that's actually giving people a capability to do more with themselves. There's another entrepreneur I actually interviewed on my podcast. His name is Brett Knudsen. Brett's maybe 25 years old, and he runs this company called Monopolize. It's pretty amazing. What he's done is he's literally said, hey, here are all these celebrities in the world that have skills, fame, etc. And here's the rest of the world. Can I be the platform in the middle that connects them? So, for example, he literally uses Instagram, Facebook, all the media tools to get celebrities a huge opportunity to get endorsements, paid shout outs, interviews, coaching, etc., where celebrities can actually monetize their fame, but the average person can connect with them. And if I wanted to connect with a celebrity today, I just call Brett. I'm like, Brett, can I talk to Will Smith? And Brett's like, cool, what do you want to talk to him about? I'm like, I'm launching a new tequila line. He's like, awesome, hold on. Hey, Will, can you talk to Sharran? Like, it's crazy, And when you're 25 and you can do something like that, it's insane. I'll give you a recent entrepreneur that I talked to. She's 22 years old. Her name is Yasmina Ellens. She runs the Young Entrepreneur's Journey podcast. So she is 22 years old. She just graduated from Cambridge. She's in the UK. She realized that she wants to build an entrepreneurial community, and she didn't know how to build it. So literally she's like, okay, if I don't know how to build it, I'm just going to interview all these entrepreneurs. And then based on what they say, that'll be my education. So she's 22. Like, it's insane. And good for her. I don't know how she found a way to get an introduction to get me on her show. Like, I had no idea who she was. And then I get on her show, and it was so mind-blowing, her energy and her warmth, that I flipped it and I asked her to be on my podcast. Like, that's crazy. Right. And so, and her jam is, and she was able to quote Plato. She was able to quote, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm like, you're 22. How are you quoting Nelson Mandela? Like, that's insane, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is all these young entrepreneurs have this very strong singularity of focus. And I always talk about the three things that you really need to have an exponential life is to have a singularity of focus. And what is that? What is that super singularity of focus? And each of them always have the singularity of focus because they wake up in the morning and they're like, how can I do this one thing better today? Right. And then the entire universe seems to conspire to make that happen. And it's actually not like woo-woo kind of thing. It's real. Like that, if that's all I'm focused on, That's all you get. And that's, and whether, regardless of what your politics are, right? Donald Trump is a really interesting media example of this. His singularity of focus is making himself famous and putting everybody else down. That's a singularity of focus. And everything else, and it's not bad or good, and I don't care, right? My point is, if you look at his tweets and you say, okay, I know what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to make himself look good so he can engender himself, and he's put everybody else down so he feels better than everybody else. You look at all his posts, all his tweets, all his Facebook comments, everything. That's his campaign, right? And it's not bad, but he has a very good singularity of focus. And regardless, people with the singularity of focus, they win. Jesus Christ had a singularity of focus. Mother Teresa on the streets of Calcutta had a singularity of focus. Like, it's very, very simple. And Sachin Tendulkar had singularity of focus. Like, this is very, like, everybody has a singularity of focus. Those that have a singularity of focus get known for what they do really well. And, in the Western world, they call this, I don't know if this translates, they call this the one-trick pony. Have you guys heard of it? Yeah. Everyone goes, oh yeah, everyone talks about him, but he's a one-trick pony, or she's a one-trick pony. And I'm like, one-trick ponies make a lot of money, by the way. Like, if you're really good at one thing, it's totally fine. Like, it's totally fine to be really good at one thing. At some point in our lives, we should say, okay, I'm 25, I'm 30, I'm 50. At some point, you should pick one thing. At some point. Like, my son's 8.5. If he wants to play soccer and football and tennis, fine. But when he's 29, I'm like, dude, pick something. Maybe two. But you still can't like try to figure it out when you're 30. Like, just you got to focus. So I think all the young entrepreneurs that do really well have an insane singularity of focus. So in our fund, when I write a check to a company, I ask myself this one question: does this entrepreneur have so much passion in what they're doing that whether or not this company lives or dies, fails or doesn't fail, do I see them at least having this fire for like another 3 to 5 years in this specific field? Because if someone is building a CRM and I don't feel like they love that so much, then in 2 years they're going to build something and it's just going to fizzle out. So I'm looking for they're so obsessed with it that whether or not something happens, they really focus on that. So one of the big criteria for me is, like, when I'm talking to somebody, is I want to see their passion around that singularity of focus. And you can tell, right? They have fact fluency around it. They have like, hey, they'll tell you the history about it. They'll be like, hey, did you know the first CRM was the Gutenberg press? They'll tell you stories that you don't even know about that. And that's when there's so much obsession around it. And that's a really good indicator that something cool is to come, because they're obsessed with it, right? And obsession leads to a lot of like really, really great things. So, and it's very hard to be obsessed with 20 things. I like people that are obsessed, because you can only be obsessed with 1 or 2 things.
Good point, Karthika. Who is in her own right very obsessive. Go ahead.
While I was going through your blog, Sharran, I stumbled upon this interesting thing where you talked about the 37 lessons you learned. So which one has had the most impact on your life?
Good question. So for background, well, I'll tell you what happened. So everybody will ask, I'll go back to the quote that I said earlier. Everyone will ask people, well, how did you do this? Right. And so when we built this business, we took it over and it was not doing great. We built it over 5 years. We grew 10x in 5 years. Very grateful, had a good run. And during that time, if you had asked me, hey, how you built this business, I would not have known. I was flying the plane at that time, right? But after we built and sold the business, I had some time to stop and think and said, what did we do well? What didn't we do well? And I literally, I took 30 days off after we sold the business. And I wrote down a lot of lessons in my sketch pad. And I wrote down these 37 lessons that we learned. And out of the 37 lessons, I don't even have to look at them. I can tell you what is the most important thing to me is that first thing is all the learning happens in retrospect, right? Which is super interesting, by the way, right? All the learnings happen in retrospect. So meaning until you stop and you reflect, you can't actually understand what you learned. And the second thing, there's 2 parts of it. The second thing is until you actually commit those learnings to some kind of artifact, like hey, here are these lessons that I learned, or you tell somebody that this is what I learned, or until you actually like put them all in a container, you don't get to integrate them into your life. So what's super important here is that there's a meta learning and there's like a learning. So I'll give you the meta learning first. The meta learning is it's unfair for us to go through our lives having all these experiences, and why do we end up making the same mistakes again? You and I, let's not lie. You and I have made a mistake in our lives, have realized that was a stupid thing to do, and then we made the mistake again. Right? And then we were like, I'm never doing that again. Then 3 months go by and we do the same thing again. Why? The reason is this. The reason is we didn't stop and reflect, and then we didn't memorialize it in some way. So memorialization idea number one is so my coach told me to do this. So that's why I built this 37 lessons learned. And so I memorialized it for two reasons. One, hopefully other people can see it. And two, 99% of it was for me. That is, I went through these lessons. I almost lost my house. I almost lost my health. I almost died because I overstressed myself. I almost lost my family. I should at least spend some time writing these down so that I don't make these mistakes or I take care of these. That's the meta learning, right? And I actually think a lot of people can do that themselves in their lives. And I call this the idea of the not to-do list. Everyone has the to-do list, right? But the not to-do list is super important. Like I can show you my Evernote and I have like 167 things in my not to-do list over the last 8 years. It sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's just a memorialization of, hey, for example, stay away from consistently inconsistent people. That's saying don't do that, right? Like it's super important. All that said, let's go with to the number one lesson. Out of the 37 lessons learned, and if someone wants to look at it, it's 10xin5years.com, totally free, no opt-in, no nothing. And I'd say is I would have gotten a coach or a mentor, paid coach or a mentor, significantly earlier in my life. Significantly earlier. And to the point where I was like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm amazing. Like I can figure everything out. That's my job. Entrepreneurs figure it out. We solve problems. We grind. We hustle. Like that's the job. Oh no, that's not the job. Like the job is to get the result as fast as possible with the least amount of stress. And to do that, somebody's already been there. Someone's already done that. Someone knows what they can do. So if I could do anything differently, even today, if I could do anything differently, I would get a coach or a mentor much earlier in my life. And I lived that with my, I have multiple paid coaches and mentors. And I think in no better setting than the three of us right now will you appreciate this. So for some reason, a lot of the Eastern cultures have this, let me go get advice from somebody that is elderly, right? Let me go talk to a guru, talk to a friend, whatever, and I'll get this advice. And that's totally cool. But the problem is someone has built a business or has 20 years experience and we go pick their brain, have lunch, ask them questions, etc. They give us 20 minutes of advice based on their 20 years of experience and we walk away. And here's where I think the problem is. I think there's a karmic imbalance with that, right? The karmic imbalance is Karthika has actually done something for 15 years. She has gone through all this pain. She's learned this. She's lost money. She's lost businesses. She's lost contracts. But she's won as well. She took all those experiences and she gave it to me over a coffee. Cool. But there's a karmic imbalance with that, right? It's not, I don't think that's fair. And this will cause a lot of people to maybe not agree with me, and I'm okay with that because
100% energy exchange is very important.
Yeah.
And because it's karmically imbalanced, it's very hard to implement. Now, if I said, "Hey, let me write the check for this coaching session," your job is you took the money to download your experience to me. I wrote the check, therefore I'm serious, and I paid you. So now, once we walk away, I wrote your check, you gave me your thing, I got the thing, now it's on me. We have karmic neutral, right? And so that's why I stopped doing, like when someone emails me like, hey, I'd love to pick your brain. I'm like, no, Absolutely not. Because now my karma is all off and I don't want to do that, right? And so when I talk to, like, if I'm interviewing a new coach, I will pay for the coach. I will even pay for the interview session. Even whether you choose to hire me, I will still pay for it because I know that I'm going to get some value from it and I don't want it to be lopsided in some way. And, but the most important thing is we help support what we help create, right? And so how much more serious are we when we actually pay a coach? Whether or not the coach is even worth the money is irrelevant. Like, why do we pay a personal trainer to go to the gym? You know you got to do lat pull downs and push-ups and run on the treadmill. You know that. But why do we pay the personal trainer? Because it's a symbol of our seriousness, right? And whatever we would do in our health with a chef or with a trainer, or what would you ever go to your doctor and say, let me pick your brain? That's not, it's no different than, like, I as an entrepreneur who has built and lost millions of dollars and made millions, I can give you more value than a doctor like that. But you would pick my brain, but you will pay the doctor. Like that's weird to me, right? So we'd go to the doctor because we have the flu and we'd pay them, and you know that they're going to prescribe you Advil or the same, you know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But there's a symbol of seriousness with that, right? And I think that's why I've, even my, I'll give you this one story and you'll appreciate this. So my son is 8.5 years old, right? He's a good football player. He's a good football player. And he was struggling with using his left foot. And if we've all played soccer or football in our lives, and we're good with our right hands if you're right-handed and your right foot, but he's struggling with his left foot as a kid. You know what he told me? Like, he tells me the average person will tell you this, oh, Dad, I need to practice more. That's what the average person will say.
Yeah.
But my son is different. You know what he said? Hey, Dad, can you get me a coach that can teach me how to kick with my left foot? Completely different.
Yes.
Right? And so just having him get a coach to teach him how to use his left foot completely accelerated how much better he did. Otherwise, he's going to be practicing 1 hour a week for 15 weeks and nothing's going to ever happen, right? And I think the symbol of seriousness, so my sons realize that, can I just go get a private lesson? Someone that can shorten the curve for me so I can do better much faster. And that's, like, I call it buying speed. Like, how can you buy speed? And if you don't want something to happen for 20 years, go ahead, figure it out on your own. But if you want something now, like, let's just buy speed because now you know exactly what to do.
So, Karthika, before we jump in, I just was, a couple of things struck me, and I just want to make sure we sort of pivot to that a little bit. So, you have a favorite saying, this transformation doesn't happen in isolation. So I think that this is a mantra related to that, which is, get the help, build the support structures, replicate if you want to be Steve Jobs, get the support systems that he had in place, right? You can't do this in isolation. You're not a god, right? So that's it. And I think the reflection part, and then putting that down and codifying that, and then making that change yourself, can that be sort of, if you also sort of emphasize and stress that you need to sort of, the good process drives good results. Mm-hmm. So should the one part of the process be that, you take the time to sort of debrief and sort of reflect on what's worked, what hasn't worked. Maybe it's after a meeting, maybe it's after a particularly tough client engagement, or even a successful one. And then you sort of take the time to sort of, in the process of your sort of processes that you set in place, you take the time to sort of reflect on that, write it down, because you said that's a crucial point, and then sort of get that to become more muscle memory in your process. Would that be something sort of tactically that you would recommend people do?
Yeah, I'll actually make it even easier for you. And great pickup. Let me pull up my, so I can actually read it to you. Where's my? I can actually read, because you'll appreciate this. So at some point, I can also send you guys this, and you can post it.
Great.
So I have something called, I do a weekly review. Too bad I can't share my screen. I do a weekly review. Here, let me actually try to share my screen here.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
You can. You just click on
that flower button.
No, this share screen button.
Yeah. I see it. That's good. So I'll share my screen. I'll show this to you. I think you guys may appreciate this a lot. So application window. This is good. I think this will help everybody. So you should see my screen right now, right?
Yes.
So what you're seeing is my weekly review. Is that what you see? I hope.
Yep.
Yeah. So Here's the weekly review. So I do this, and you know that we did not prep for this, right? Like I actually
Right.
chose to do that. This is my weekly review, and a weekly review, and there's some vulnerable stuff in here, so please keep this all between us. But the weekly review is something that I do from 4:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. 45 minutes a week on Friday afternoons. So today is Friday, so a little past your time. 4:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. And here's what I do with the weekly review. I basically these are the things that I do. I say, hey. Number one, I process my inbox. Number two, I read my newsletters. Like all this is irrelevant, right? But at the end, what you're seeing here is at the end, I write down this one thing. I write down my learning, one learning, right? And what you're not seeing in this document below, which I'm going to leave it below, is that what you're not seeing is the fact that I have hundreds of learnings on this document. Like in this document is probably all my learnings that give me from that week. If I had to synthesize one learning, what would it be? And so it's very hard for people if they don't have a process, like you said, to codify what they learn. But here's my process. At the end of my weekly review, like literally I go in here and I'm like, I've done that. I'm checking stuff off the list, right? So that's what I'm doing. So I go through the same checklist process so that I know I get everything done and nothing falls through the cracks. And at the end, I write my learnings for the week. So I'll read one of these, right? So here's one of these learnings. I wrote, hey, it seems like I'm addicted to marking things read on email. Most of these emails are in newsletter folders and many don't have immediate value. Maybe I should set aside a weekly 15 minutes just to process the newsletters folder, right? Now that doesn't seem like earth-shattering insight,
right?
But if you notice for a second, it's dragging me down. Like I'm probably getting extremely distracted doing this, right? And that's super important for people to know, because if I can capture small things like that, I optimize my life every single week, and I am better because I did that. And this is what you call an artifact of success, right? I literally am showing you, here's my weekly review. And at the end, I write the one learning. And now at the end of the year, right? Like when I'm planning 2021 or the next year, I go back to my list and I'll just skim through all my learnings. And I'm like, wow, should not do that again. So now you're actually codifying that. And it was never written in a moment of deep emotion. It was like, you actually stopped, and writing it daily is kind of hard because now it gets overwhelming. But if I had to come up with one for the week, it's made my life a lot easier. And so now if I needed something to add something to my weekly review, and I just say, hey, you know what, for the next 3 months, I'm going to review my bills or whatever, I just add it to my list. That way I don't have more productivity drag in what I'm doing. When you talk to like entrepreneurs, mentors, et cetera, like the things that I talk to them about, I don't ask them about advice for my business. I don't ask. I just want to know how they live their life. I'm like, hey, when you wake up in the morning, what do you do? Like when you get stuck and you get a really nasty email, what do you do? I want to know the things that they have figured out so that I don't have to spend the 30 years trying to figure it out. Like literally what I gave you is like a 20-year experience. Like I am going to wager that less than 1 out of 1,000 people that watch this have something like this in place, right? And also, like it's not a piece of software. It's nothing. It's super easy. Like I literally have an Evernote, and it is free. It's really easy to do. But once you have the process and it's not complex and it's simple, you have the ability to put that into play right away. But the key is, if I did not have a 4:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. block every Friday on my calendar, the weekly review wouldn't happen. And if the weekly review didn't happen, then my weekly insight wouldn't happen. And the weekly insight didn't happen, my codifying wouldn't happen. If the codifying didn't happen, it wouldn't integrate into my life. And if the integration didn't happen, I'd be the same idiot that I was 3 years ago. Right?
Touche. Yeah, absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? And the point is, the answer to that is, how can I, if there's a lesson here, the lesson is the greatest entrepreneurs keep appointments with themselves. Right? If I had a meeting with you guys today and I didn't show, well, that would be bad. But if I had a meeting with myself and I didn't show, for most people, that's okay.
Nice.
right? Like it's an appointment with yourself. My 4:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. on Friday afternoons is an appointment with myself. And it's very easy for someone to say, hey, do you want to meet at that time? I'm like, yeah, I'll meet because I'm only meeting with myself. So no, that's an appointment with myself, right? And so because of that, a lot of like downstream things happen. And we've got to put the codifying, we've got to make things like a part of our lives. Otherwise, the integration becomes like too haphazard. And it, again, goes back to, you want to be consistently consistent, right? If I just did this once a year, I'm consistently inconsistent, so you'll never see any change.
Right.
Fair enough. We have a really good question finally, which I really want to ask. Well, Lavi, do you have something?
No. I'm cognizant of the time. We have 3 minutes, so I know we had a ton of questions for.
Yeah, but this is a good one. If you had the power to fix one global problem, what would it be, and why, and how would you go about it?
That's super hard. I don't. That's a hard one. And if I would be lying if I told you that I had an answer to that. Here is, let's think about this first. So if I had to, I'll answer it in a much broader way. I think that maybe the Indian roots, maybe stuff that I didn't get, maybe my learning disabilities. I believe that the leaders of tomorrow can be shaped by great education. And there's very few systemic educational systems in the world that are built to create just great citizens of tomorrow. Let's speak just from a perspective of India, and let's speak from a perspective of the US, because we both know those environments, right? If they're both in India and the US, if there's one group of people that are extremely underpaid and extremely undermotivated, extremely undersupported, it is teachers in India and teachers in the US.
Yes, great.
If we can just fix that, right? And this is has wide ranging political and economic impact. But do I know how to fix it? I don't. I have no idea. However, but I know that if I woke up tomorrow, and let's say just in the US, if I just woke up tomorrow and I knew, whether it's paid or public school or whatever, if I knew that my children are going to be put into an educational system that evolves with my modern days, that is still not reading textbooks from 97 years ago, that's like all of that stuff, right? It would make me believe that we are going to build better leaders of tomorrow. And I think education is a big problem. And that's why I actually think the pandemic has given us a wake-up call that healthcare doesn't need to be delivered in person anymore.
Right.
And education doesn't need to be delivered in person anymore. We figured out the others. We thought that healthcare and education always thought we needed to be delivered in person, but I think the pandemic has shown that healthcare doesn't need to be delivered in person anymore, and education doesn't need to be delivered in person. And maybe that allows for better skills to show up. I actually think that great teachers are just going to go online and be like, hey, I don't need to be a part of the public school system. I'll teach third grade to kids. Send your kids to me. Like, I don't know, but if I could snap my fingers and fix a world problem, it would be. And in India too, right? Like I went to K through 12 in India. Like if I didn't have to rote memorize multiplication tables, which do you really think that you need to know what 16 times 16 is? There's zero reason to do that. And my dad would be like, why can't you do square root in your head? I'm like, who the heck cares? but that's not the point. The point more is it was done in a situation where no one was walking around with a phone that could literally do everything for them, right? So I think we have a new opportunity here. So if I could snap my fingers, it would be, can I create a better educational system for the world?
I think that's a great one. I hadn't thought of that, but that's a brilliant one. Actually, the Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, just said that in one generation, you can lift India out of poverty if we fix the education system. So, I just read that quote just 2 days ago. So I'm hoping that more people think like that, because but
just think about that for a second, right? How inspiring is that? If that was somebody's life's work, can you imagine in one generation, you change the financial bloodline of an entire country?
Yeah.
That is insane.
Insane. It's amazingly transformative. Amazing.
Yeah.
So Sharran, thank you so much. I mean, we have tons of questions, but I encourage people, Karthik and I, to sort of go look at hear podcasts, look at all the podcasts you've done as well. It's very inspiring. I mean, we from dumpster diving to selling your company for several $1 billion. That's a sort of an amazing comeback story. We're grateful that you joined us today, and thank you so much for spending and sharing such valuable wisdom with us. I guess is the right word.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.